All right, so get this right. Today's deep dive takes us back, way back, like 3,500 years, to, you guessed it, cheese.
Ancient cheese.
Ancient cheese. It all started with you, our amazing listeners. Someone sent in this incredible find about, well, about cheese from the Bronze Age, unearthed in the Xiaohe Cemetery in China. Talk about a blast from the past.
Wow, this isn't just some, like, snack someone dropped centuries ago. This is big, right?
Oh, absolutely. We're talking a scientific journal cell big. This isn't just about satisfying a craving from millennia ago. This is changing how we look at the history of kefir itself.
Okay, so hold on. Kefir. You're saying this ancient cheese is tied to, like, the kefir I know.
You got it. But honestly, before we started this deep dive, I wouldn't have guessed kefir had a history stretching back that far either.
So for those of us who might be unfamiliar, could you give us a little kefir 101?
Absolutely. Take it away.
All right, so kefir. Think of it as like a tangy, kind of thinner yogurt. It's a fermented milk drink. And what makes it special is how it's made. Traditionally, you use these things called kefir grains. They're like little communities of bacteria and yeast all coexisting peacefully. Think of them like the sourdough starter, but for, well, yogurt.
So we've got this ancient kefir cheese, and it's found in a cemetery. That's not your typical cheese counter find.
It gets even wilder. We're talking about cheese found near the necks of mummies in this Xiaohe cemetery. Even the burial practice itself is a clue, don't you think?
Ah,
This cheese must meant something to these people. It wasn't just, a snack.
that just blows my mind. And get this, the article mentioned they actually got DNA from the cheese. After all this time, is that even possible?
So in this case, it was. The dry desert conditions in that region were like nature's time capsule. It was incredibly well preserved. Because of that, scientists use some pretty high-tech analysis. Think proteomics, it's looking at proteins, and of course DNA analysis. And they confirmed it. This was kefir cheese. But not only did they find the Lactobacillus kefironifaciens bacteria, which is like the hallmark of kefir, but they even found DNA from the goats whose milk was used.
Hold on, we're talking tracing the lineage of goats from cheese. Now that's specific.
Right. And it gets even more interesting. When they looked at the goat DNA, they found connections to goats from Europe and Central Asia. And this actually lines up perfectly with what's known about migrations back in the Bronze Age and about the cultural exchange going on then. Makes you think maybe the Xiaohe people picked up goat herding from these steppe populations.
So just from one piece of cheese, we're already uncovering ancient diets, trade routes, even cultural exchange. This is incredible, but I gotta know, what else is hiding in this cheesy time capsule? What were they hoping to find by zooming in on the cheese at like a microscopic level? So it's like a whole microscopic world, right?
Yeah.
Living in this cheese. Did they find anything out of the ordinary when they took a look at what was living in there?
Oh, it was a happening place, that's for sure. Like a little microbial party. They found the Lactobacillus, obviously. That's to be expected. But there was more. DNA from all kinds of bacteria and fungi.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Some were like your average environmental microbes just floating around in the world. But some, well, they were more likely hitchhikers, probably from human skin.
So does that mean, like, the samples were contaminated?
That's what you'd think, right? But it's not that simple.
Really? How so?
We'll get this. One of the cheese samples, it actually had really low levels of what we'd usually consider contaminating bacteria. Instead, a whole bunch of different fungi, penicillium even.
Wait, hell, hold up. Penicillium, like the thing we get penicillin from, are you telling me they were using antibiotics in their cheese 3,500 years ago?
Huh, I wish. That would be something else. But no, the penicillium here, especially with the low bacteria levels, it points to something else. Something pretty cool, actually. It tells us that the Xiaohe people, they knew what they were doing when it came to fermentation.
You're saying they were, like, curating their cheese cultures, intentionally growing some microbes and not others?
Yeah.
Back then.
Bingo. They might not have known the science, like the molecular details, but they knew how to create the perfect environment, the kind of place where the good microbes, the ones that make that delicious cheese, could thrive. And they kept the bad ones out. It's really impressive for the time, shows you how much they understood about their food.
That's pretty amazing. But you said earlier that this discovery, it changes how we look at the history of kefir itself. What is it about this cheese that makes it so important for understanding kefir's, like, origin story?
Remember how we talked about the two distinct lineages of kefir?
Yeah.
One that's super common in the Caucasus region?
Yeah.
And that other one, the one with the, let's say, murkier past.
Yeah, right? Don't tell me. Was this mystery lineage hiding out in ancient China this whole time?
Well, this cheese might just be the answer. When they took the DNA from the Lactobacillus kefironifaciens in the cheese and compared it to modern kefir strains, It was a match. That second lineage, the mysterious one, it's like finding a long-lost relative. Makes you think that kefir might have a much longer, richer history in East Asia than we ever imagined. Maybe even started around the Xinjiang region.
Wow, so this cheese, it's like a key point in kefir history, a missing link to a whole other part of the world. Really makes you wonder what other culinary secrets are out there just waiting to be unearthed. But this goes beyond just the cheese, or even kefir, right? The article talks about how making cheese might have changed the microbes themselves over time.
Oh, absolutely. This is about way more than just figuring out ancient recipes. We're talking about how humans, just by doing something as, well, normal as making cheese, might have been shaping the evolution of an entire species of bacteria for millennia.
That's mind-blowing. When I think about evolution, I'm thinking like grand scale, millions of years. But us, just by making food, we had a hand in shaping the microbial world.
It's amazing, isn't it? And they figured it out by, well, digging into the Lactobacillus DNA. It all comes down to this thing called horizontal gene transfer.
Okay, break it down for me.
So imagine this. Bacteria, they can swap genes, right, like trade secrets. But instead of getting their genes just from their parents, they're picking them up from their microbial neighbors.
Whoa, like a genetic swap meet?
Exactly. It's how they adapt, much faster than they could if they were just waiting for evolution to do its thing. New environment, new challenges. Boom. Swap some genes and they're ready to go.
That is so cool. But how does cheese making fit into all of this? What makes it the ideal place for this kind of microbial exchange?
Think about it. You're a microbe. Suddenly you're in cheese world. It's like a whole new world. Lots of tasty nutrients from the milk. But it's also acidic, low on oxygen, thanks to the fermentation process. Not exactly a walk in the park.
So only the microbes with the right, I guess, skills or genes, they're the ones who make it.
You got it. It's survival of the fittest, microbe style. And the researchers, they think this constant pressure cooker environment, plus the fact that all these microbes are living so close together in the cheese, it created the perfect storm for horizontal gene transfer.
So the lactobacillus that snagged a beneficial gene from their neighbor, maybe something that helped them handle the acidity better, they were the ones that thrived.
Precisely. It's like evolution on fast forward. And we, the humans making the cheese, we were the accidental architects of this whole process.
Wow. And they actually found these traded genes in the cheese, right? What were they? What kind of adaptations were going on?
Oh, they found some interesting ones. Genes related to stress response, for example.
Mm.
Like imagine a bacterial lifeboat. Helps them weather those tough conditions. Like you find in, well, cheese, they even found genes that change the bacterial cell wall.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, could be a way to deal with the salt used in cheese making. Or even, and this is cool, a way to better interact with other friendly microbes in there. Teamwork makes the dream work, even for microbes.
So it's not random. These genes, they gave the lactobacillus a serious advantage, made them true cheese masters. It's really incredible to think about how much influence we might have on this invisible world just by going about our lives.
It really is. It's easy to forget, you know. We think of ourselves as separate from nature. But this research, it's a good reminder. We are deeply, deeply connected to the microbial world and our actions. Even something as simple as making cheese, they can echo through time.
It really makes you appreciate just how amazing a simple piece of cheese really is. So we've covered a lot of ground here. Started with this, unassuming block of ancient cheese, and look where we ended up.
Right. Ancient diets, trade routes, the origins of kefir. We even touched on like the evolution of microbes, all thanks to this cheese.
And to think it all started with you, our listeners. Someone out there went, hey, ancient cheese, that's interesting. And look where it led us. It's really incredible when you think about it.
Absolutely. It reminds you how much we can learn from the past, even from, a few crumbs here and there. Each discovery is like opening this, I don't know, this window into another time, another place.
Exactly. It makes you think, what will people find hundreds of years from now? What will our leftovers tell them about us, about the world we lived in?
It's really a good question. I can't even imagine what those discoveries will be.
Well, before we get too lost in the future, let's bring it back to today's deep dive. We started with that 3,500-year-old cheese found in the Xiaohe cemetery in China. And just from that, we learned about the food, the culture, the practices of the Xiaohe people. But not just that, it gave us this crucial piece of the puzzle about kefir's past, maybe even pointed us to where it all began. And then, on top of that, we dove into the cheese's microbes, and we saw this whole story of adaptation, of evolution, all playing out because of cheese making.
It really blows your mind when you think about it, how something we take for granted, like our food choices, can have these huge ripple effects across thousands of years, shaping the world around us in ways we can't even imagine.
It makes you realize just how much is going on behind the scenes in our everyday lives. I mean, if we learned all this from one piece of ancient cheese, imagine what other secrets are still out there, hidden in plain sight, maybe in the food we eat every day.
Now that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Every bite we take, every, say, fermented food we enjoy, every sip of kefir, they all have stories to tell. Stories just waiting for someone to uncover them.
And who knows, maybe someday someone will be talking about our food, our kitchens, and uncovering stories just as incredible as that of the Xiao cheese.
I'd love to hear those deep dives.
Me too. But until then, a huge thank you to you, our amazing listener, for sharing this incredible research with us. We hope you've enjoyed this journey back in time, this deep dive into the world of ancient cheese, microbial hitchhikers, and the amazing ways our history is connected to, well, to the food we eat. Keep exploring, keep asking those questions, and most importantly, keep those curious minds well fed. We'll catch you next time.